It's episode 624 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, I'm talking about Martin Perez saying he 300% wants to stay with Rangers past the deadline and what the Rangers should do about that and his future with the Rangers and the rest of this rotation as well. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this podcast. It is Wednesday, June 29th. Your Rangers are 36-37, half game away from 500. If they can complete the sweep of this Royals team, they will finally get back there. They are alone in second place in the AL West, 10 games behind the Astros in the division, and 4 games behind the Rays for that third wild card. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every day. If you're not already, you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. And the best way you can help grow the show is subscribe on YouTube. We are inching closer to that 1,000 subscribers mark by the All-Star break. I think we can get there. We're a little under 70 away, so every single one of y'all helps at this point, and I really appreciate all of y'all following me on there and commenting anything below. Before we get into today's episode and Martin Perez, his impact on the future of this Rangers rotation, this episode is brought to you by the Sports Card Investor app. Welcome to the world of trading cards reimagined. Stay tuned for later in the show for more information about this awesome new tool for collectors. You're going to want to check out the Sports Card Investor app. Now, you may notice we're going pretty much full ASMR on this episode because last episode I could barely get through 20 minutes without having an entire coughing attack. Well, I had several. There were a lot more cut out in editing, which was just a huge pain. So we're basically going full ASMR until my voice heals. So if you don't like it, I don't like it either. So let's just power through it together. But the most important news coming out of this weekend that I wasn't able to get to in yesterday's episode is that Martin Perez wants to stay with the Rangers at least after the deadline. He does not want to be traded at the deadline to some other contender, or I should probably just say contender because the Rangers are 4 games out of the wild card and they're still at this point under 500. But this is what he said, quote, "I want to be here and stay here 100%. No, make it 300%. I've been in 2 other places and nowhere have I felt as good as I feel here. Here now, I feel like if I don't do my job on the field one day, I can still do it in the clubhouse. I can help these guys. It's not just about me and my career, but it's about this team." Now, that's a powerful message, and that's something that he is kind of echoing and kind of resounded around him when he decided to come back to the Rangers. He went to 2 different places. He went to Minnesota, Thad Levine, who I think was one of the guys who he was at least with the Rangers when they scouted him as the Rangers assistant GM. I don't know that he was necessarily one that scouted him. I usually assume that AJ Preller was the one that scouted all these different guys with a lot of potential, that some of them thrived at the major league level, some of them didn't. But Thad Levine definitely had an eye on there. He knew the capability that Martin Perez had, the potential that he had, and he signed him there, I believe, just to a 1-year deal. Didn't work out quite as well. He did add a cutter, and that helped him quite a bit, but it just wasn't quite home for him. Then he went to Boston for a couple years, and it seemed all right in Boston, but he lost his spot in the rotation, even though there were guys who were worse than him, I think, in that starting rotation. He ended up being a long man in the pen. Then he got offers from several other places, including San Diego, I believe, offered him a 2-year deal. Of course, AJ Preller trying to get all the former Rangers that he scouted. I mean, side note, it's very depressing to look at the Padres lineup now and see a lineup of, oh, look, there's Jurickson Profar hitting leadoff. Oh, look, there's Jorge Alfaro catching and batting in the middle of the order. Oh, look, and then there's Noah Rosara batting in kind of the, 6-hole or 7-hole. Oh, look at those guys all thriving, and none of them are doing it for the Rangers. That's kind of what I imagined this 2022 Rangers lineup to look like about 6 years ago, before all the various issues happened with those different guys, or trades. Jorge Alfaro had no issues. He was just traded. Anyway, but Perez had these different offers, and as soon as his agent told him that he had to deal with the Rangers, even though it was for 1 year, $4 million, he said, no, I'm taking it. I want to go back to Texas. I loved it there, and that is my home, and that is where I felt comfortable, and I want to go back there and, be a new version of myself. And so far he has. And his most recent start, it didn't go quite as well as we've been used to seeing him. He's had a couple of blow-up starts. I don't know if this necessarily counts. He did allow 4 runs in those first 2 innings. But at that point, the Rangers he allowed 1 run in the first, and the Rangers dropped a 4-bomb in the second inning, and then the Royals tied it back up in the bottom of the second with 3 runs there. But after that, he was absolutely aces, minimal traffic around the bases, did get 6 strikeouts in 6 innings, and was able to compose himself and get the Rangers the length they needed, because again, they were coming off of a week when they basically had 2 bullpen games in a row. This was a Monday game, and one of the things with Martin Perez in the past is that he would let these bad innings escalate to the point where they would just completely spiral out of control, and he would not be able to stay in the game. But this year, we've seen it time and time again. Or even when he has those bad innings, even the outing that was his worst of the season by far against the White Sox, he did end up going 5 innings. He allowed 7 runs, 6 of those were earned, and he did allow his I believe, second home run of the season. Yeah, his second home run of the season in that one. But he was able to come back and get the Rangers the length that they needed, which ended up being crucial because that series had 2 different games that went to extra innings. I believe the second one, or the third one, I should say, went to 12 innings, I believe it was, that crazy series in Chicago where the Rangers probably should have lost at least 2 out of those 3, but ended up winning 2 out of 3 games. But he has been a mentor to these guys. We've seen it talk with some of the minor league guys or the minor league writers who are there on the backfields, seeing him this year, seeing him feel comfortable and going to those backfields. He was just a regular there, mentoring these young Rangers prospects. The Venezuelan guys all flocked to him because he's Venezuelan and he came from the Ranger system. So he kind of knows a little bit of what they're going through and the challenges they face and some of the things that they know how to deal with. And he just loved being a mentor to those guys on the backfields, the prospects. Now it seems like he's taking a role, thriving in this role of veteran, leading the guys in the clubhouse at the big league level, showing them what it takes to be a major league pitcher, because he's been in the big leagues for 10 years, so he knows what the heck he's doing. I believe his last start, or maybe it was yesterday, was the 10-year anniversary of his big league debut, which is pretty darn cool. But yeah, this is his 11th season in the big leagues. He knows what he's doing, and he loves it here, and you cannot value that enough. Guys who want to be here. Granted, there are some other options in free agency, and there are some guys that have some potential. But at this point, not a whole lot of guys in the farm system. I'd say Owen White and Jack Leiter at this point. Maybe Cole Winn, depending on how things shake out for the rest of the season. But those are the only 2 really guys who have like a ceiling higher than what Martin Perez is doing right now. And even then, like what Martin Perez is doing right now, I don't know that he's going to sustain his sub 250 ERA for the rest of the season. It's been a little bit rougher for him in the month of June, but he still has a sub 4 ERA, even with those 2 huge blow-up starts, one really huge and one pretty medium-sized blow-up start. He's still, outside of those starts, been really darn good. His expected numbers are still really good. Now, I'm going to put a pin in this and look at what this rotation will look like next year and how he fits into it and why it's important to keep him around. But first, today's episode is brought to you by the Sports Card Investor app. Welcome to the world of sports cards reimagined. The Sports Card Investor app is the hobby's most powerful resource. Quickly check the value of your favorite cards, find great deals, and profit from the hobby you love. Available completely free in the Google Play and Apple App Store. The Sports Card Investor app is a must-have for all of these different baseball fans. It's completely free. You can browse over 630,000 cards from every single sport, with hundreds more added each week. Check the latest values of your favorite cards with 7-day or 30-day charts. Find the best prices and buy directly through the app with our eBay Deals feature. Whether you're a casual fan or a collector looking for excitement and alternative investment opportunities, the free Sports Card Investor app has something for you. They've got breakout stars. You can look for a card for Adolis Garcia, who 2 years ago probably didn't even have a card. People didn't know who he was, and now he is absolutely tearing it up. And you could go get that card there. You could get a Martin Perez card. You can get him with the Rangers, being back with the Rangers card. And his card, I'm sure, is definitely, that price is going through the roof with how great he has been doing. So you can go check out that. Go download the Sports Card Investor app today. It's available for free in the Google Play or Apple App Stores. Go to sportscardinvestor.com/lockedon. Now, I talked about how important it is to have this guy in your rotation and how there are some guys on the horizon that could get there. But if you sign him to, I believe, a 3-year deal, like that might be what he's commanding in the offseason. And, if he ends up doing this well and ends up being a top 5 Cy Young finisher, and you have to end up if he ends up commanding a 5-year deal, then he's still gonna be 36 at the end of that deal. And left-handers, usually these guys, they can pitch, they find their renaissance in their 30s or whatever, and it's looking like that might be what has happened for Martin Perez. But if you do that, and he ends up in the bottom half of your rotation by the end of, or at the end of your rotation in that 5th year of the deal, then he's still having that guy, and if he's performing anywhere near what you'd expect to be about an average 3 to 5 in a rotation, he's looking more like a 1 or a 2 right now. But let's look at what this rotation would look like next year and why it's so important the Rangers, who need to be contending next year, have him locked up. If the rotation continues like it is right now, there's no trades brought in for guys, there's no other free agents that are signed besides Martin Perez. Here's how I think the rotation would look like next year. Perez at the 1 spot, Jon Gray in the 2 slot. Dane Dunning, I think, will still hold down that 3 slot. Right now, it's looking like Glenn Otto at the 4 spot, and maybe there's a bunch of different guys who could go in the 4 or 5. Then I think if I'm being optimistic, then Cole Winn comes in the 5 spot, ends up pushing past Glenn Otto into that 4 spot somewhere in the middle of that season. But again, those are some big question marks in the 4 and 5 holes that I don't know how the Rangers are going to solve those. Maybe it's Spencer Howard, maybe it's Taylor Hearn figures it out when they send him down to AAA and he can really kind of iron some things out. Or maybe it's Cole Reagans that comes up by the end of the season, by the end of this season even, or it takes a slot next year and ends up bumping Glenn Otto or Cole Winn out of that rotation. I don't know. We could have 2 Coles in that rotation next year. That would be kind of cool and kind of fun for both those guys to have figured it out at AAA to the point where the Rangers feel comfortable calling them up and they can have some success at the big league level. But those number 1 starters, they have a whole lot of value, or just those veteran guys in the middle of rotation. We've seen what it's like when you have big holes in rotation. If you have one, that's pretty bad, and having to go with a bullpen game every 4th day, or every 5th day, I should say, 5th game, whatever, that can completely deplete your bullpen. But if you have a 4th starter that you can't count on to get you 4 to 5 to 6 innings every time, like Glenn Otto has shown at points he can do that. He's done a better job of it this year and has impressed me, done better than I thought he would. But again, he is susceptible to those blow-up starts like we saw on Sunday when he only went 2 innings and the Rangers down 6-0. Basically, we're out of it before they even had a chance to do much of anything. But having 5 solid guys in your rotation, and really, you need, when you're contending, you need 6 or 7 guys that are capable of being at least a big league number 5. Because we have seen time and time again, pitchers are finicky, fickle creatures. Humans are not meant to throw. They were not built to throw baseballs 95 miles an hour 100 times every 5 days. That's just not how they were built. So injuries happen a whole lot. You need that depth in the rotation, and having those guys at the top of your rotation right now, having Martin Perez and Jon Gray at the top right now, gives you that kind of leeway, that consistency, that safeguard that every contending team needs. And like I said, the Rangers have these big contracts. They have these 2 guys in the middle of their infield that are supposed to be stars. And granted, they're not doing super well right now, but I think they'll figure it out next year. It's just kind of a 1-year deal. But either way, this team needs to be contending next year. And you cannot afford to wait and see on these prospects. We assume that this pitching prospect. No, you cannot wait and assume anything on pitching prospects, even the generational talent pitching prospects, like guys like Strasburg, guys like Lucas Giolito, who was the best high school pitcher out of high school in forever. He had I saw grades of an 80 on his fastball and his curveball and a 70 on his changeup. And he had a Tommy John surgery and a couple other things fall off a cliff, and he ended up getting traded to the White Sox. And it wasn't until he was 28 or 30 that he started finding anywhere close to what people thought his form would be. But these guys, there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. Even Jack Leiter, as much as I love him, and as much excitement and fun as he's brought, and he's done nothing wrong. Well, mean, he has made some mistakes, but like he hasn't had a bad season at all. He's had a pretty good season. But even guys like that who are like can't miss surefire things, sometimes surefire things miss, especially in pitching prospects. Because like I said, they're finicky creatures, and sometimes injuries happen, and sometimes pitchers aren't the same. So having a guy like Martin Perez, you already have Jon Gray lined up for the next 2 seasons after this. Having those two guys side by side at the top of this rotation is a great thing to have. And if Jack Leiter comes up and if Owen White come up, and they're both potential like all-star guys, potential Cy Young guys, and they live up to like the 90th percentile of their projection and push those guys back down further in the rotation, that's great. That's a great problem to have. Then you've got those veteran guys who have been there, who have been in postseason races and chases. Well, I think Jon Gray has. I'm not sure. But I know Martin Perez has. I don't know how much he actually actively participated in them, but he was there when the Rangers were going through those, and he was with Boston when they were, competing, at least trying to, But anyway, these are guys who, if you have that problem, that is a great problem to have. The Rangers rotation is by no means set in stone, but when you have a guy who loves it there, who is thriving and wants nothing more than to feel comfortable at home in your place, you do not trade him. We have seen what the Rangers have gotten for these guys of this nature that they have traded away, and it hasn't usually been great. Now, granted, the Mike Minor deal, I don't know how that one is looking like it might end up being the best bet of them. Granted, Dane Dunning's been pretty fine, solid, getting like 5-ish years of a solid 4 to 5 starter at the major league level for, I guess it was 1 year remaining of Lance Lynn. Ends up being maybe a solid trade. But for Kyle Gibson, it's looking like a real question mark of a trade there. And Dustin Harris is looking like a great steal for the Mike Minor trade. But still, usually you are not getting comparable value on those guys. And if he wants to stay there, which by all indications, Martin Perez 300% does, you have got to do everything you can to keep him around. Coming up, I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to look at a slight change in the Rangers batting order that made a big difference, and one that they kept for a second day, and I think they should keep for a long, long time. But first, this episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that help you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind. Looking for jewelry but having trouble finding what you want? Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every single budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Rangers listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code LOCKEDON, that's code LOCKEDON, plus every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. This episode is also brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why to endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to RockAuto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every single customer. They've got every single thing you could need, so go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to RockAuto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at RockAuto.com. Now, let's look at one key change in the Rangers starting lineup that made a big difference in the 8-3 win over the Royals last night. For the first time since they have both joined the Rangers, Corey Seager hit in front of Marcus Semien, and it did wonders. Now, I don't know why they didn't try this a little bit sooner. Both these guys have been a little bit of... Semien started the season in a horrible funk, has been in a much better way in the month of June. Corey Seager has been the opposite. He started off pretty okay. He's been hitting home runs throughout, but everything else has not quite been falling to his liking. Actually, after this game, it's funny, they're both hitting exactly 231. Kind of fun stuff. But anyway, this is a multi-hit game for both of them. Marcus Semien had 3 hits, including a home run of the 3-run variety, a double that would have been a home run in 25 of the 30 ballparks, and a very, very hard-hit single, as well as a sac fly. Corey Seager also had a multi-hit game. He had his 10th double of the season and a single as well. Semien's double was his 12th of the season. His homer was his 8th of the season. He is tied for the Rangers' lead with 7 home runs in the month of June, along with the great hitting Adolis Garcia and Nathaniel Lowe. And that's another thing that I want to change in this lineup. I know I've said it again. I say it 100 times. Cole Calhoun is struggling right now, and he is not one of the hottest Rangers hitters. Why does he keep hitting so high up in the lineup? The Rangers did not sign him to be their number 4 hitter. They did not sign him to be, their number 5 hitter and hit right alongside with Corey Seager, Marcus Semien. He is a solid, middle, back in, like 6, 7, 8 hole hitter. And right now, why he was hitting ahead of Adolis Garcia, who has been as hot as anybody for like a 30-game stretch. You look at his last 7, he's got 2 home runs and a slugging percentage of .650. Look at his last 30 games, he's got a .314 batting average, 9 home runs, and slugging .595. The guy has been on fire for solid 30 games. Same with Nathaniel Lowe. Nathaniel Lowe, who I lambasted improperly early on in the season for going back to his old ways, which he is not. He has that very, very loud, raw power, and he has been able to work walks again. He has gotten that back. He has been mashing the ball very hard for the last 30 days, and I was like, all right, that's great, just working a few more walks, and now he's done that. Look at his last 7 games. He has got 1 home run, 4 walks, and 6 strikeouts, on base of .440, slugging .524. Look over the last 30 games, he's got 7 home runs, slugging .584, on base of .367. That is great. That is the offensive first baseman that you traded those young lotto tickets that I didn't like at the time. Which, you know what? I was absolutely wrong. This was a great trade. You're getting a lot of value out of Nathaniel Lowe. I don't know what's going on with those lottery ticket guys, but those 2 of them end up being all-stars, which I don't think is necessarily going to happen. Maybe they do. I don't know. But this is still a pretty darn good win of a trade for the Rangers. But it doesn't give you nearly as much, it doesn't provide you nearly as much value if he's hitting lower on in the batting order. You can't string some of these hits together. Please stop batting Nathaniel Lowe behind Cole Calhoun. Stop batting him, 7, 8, 9. He is one of your best hitters right now. Put him in the middle of your lineup. You signed him. You traded for him to be this big offensive force. Now he is performing like it. Please, please, please take advantage of it. Same with Adolis Garcia, which usually they've been hitting him, if they've got Josh Smith leading off, which I like. I like that he's working the most. He's an ideal leadoff type hitter because he's got such a great on base. He's such a feisty, difficult at bat, and he is seeing the most pitches per plate appearance of anybody on the Rangers. That is what you want from your leadoff guy, a guy with some speed and who has got a little bit of pop. We've not seen his first big league home run yet. I'm expecting we do sometime pretty soon, especially if he keeps hitting leadoff, because he is going to get the most opportunities. But I like that. I like Seager being in your number 2 hole hitter because analytics say that your number 2 hole hitter should be, statistically, is your most important. It should be your very best bat. We are seeing Juan Soto hit there. We are seeing Mike Trout hit there. Aaron Judge is hitting there too. So I think Corey Seager at his ceiling is a little bit better overall offensively than Semien, even though Semien did just have an absolutely amazing year last year. I think Seager's done a little bit more consistently. And again, it's not like you're hitting Semien like 7th or 8th or anything. He's still hitting 3rd. This is still a very, very important part of your lineup. But if this combination is working, I'd say you ride it. Maybe it's just some little thing that is tweaked and coincided with, I don't know, just flipping a little switch in these guys' heads. I like it. It works. Having Josh Smith there as a leadoff guy, not making either of those guys be leadoff guys who haven't traditionally been leadoff that much, even though I think both of them would be great. If they're not comfortable with it and they don't have a lot of experience with it, then maybe that's not the best move. But I like this lineup 1 through 4 of Josh Smith, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, and then Adolis Garcia. Put Cole Calhoun in the 6-7 spot. Bring Nathaniel Lowe up. If Heim is still, kind of on his big hit or miss energy like he has been lately, then having him in that 7th, 8th spot isn't the worst thing in the world. But I do like this little switch. They did stick with it for this day game that's happening as I'm recording. But I like this switch. I think they should stick with it. And I have been very, very encouraged by what I've seen from those two guys in the very, very short stint that they have been doing this little switcheroony. Also, going back to the point with Martin Perez, just wanted to say again, Dane Dunning is on going the rotation, not Martin Perez specifically, but Dane Dunning right now. I'm hoping that he can end this streak as I'm recording this. Maybe like 3 people will listen to it by the time it's over. But if Dane Dunning can at least be reliable on the road, which is something his biggest problem he needs to fix, that spot, if he cannot do that, then that spot even is open in the rotation, which makes Martin Perez coming back even more important with the question marks coming up from the farm system. Not that they're bad, but they are question marks because they are prospects, and that's just how these things go. Well, I think my voice is just about to give out for the day, but thank y'all so much for listening. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. I'm going to be really, really annoying about it until we hit that 1,000 mark because it means my checks will get much bigger. So if you like me, you want to do a nice thing, just hit that little subscribe button. It really, really does help me out. I appreciate every single one of y'all for listening. Thank y'all so much for it. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.